Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on this week's podcast is Marlon West. Marlon's got a really important and rather harrowing story to share with us, but one that I think people need to hear. So, Marlon, it's good to get you on. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning.
Some people are thinking if who aren't familiar with your story, they'll all be thinking, well, what is it? So let's get down to the real raw materials of this story. Just tell us a bit about your story, if you would.
I've been a campaigner for the last couple of years. I've been campaigning for a national um, public inquiry with statutory powers for grooming. And the reason for that was my daughter was groomed up to a couple of years ago. So it's pretty recent. She was first groomed when she was 14, until she was just turned 18.
We'll get down into the detail, Marlon, but prior to that, was Scarlett just a normal young girl?
Yeah. Um, you know, let's be honest, she wasn't an angel, but yeah, she was a good kid, full of personality, definitely full of character, very academic. She went to quite a prestige school where we live. When she was younger, she went to a private school. No major problems from school. No phone calls that she hadn't done the homework. Yeah, she was a good kid.
And then something happened. What was the alarm bell that went off in your head, Marlon, that thought, actually, something's not right here. Something's changed. I mean, of course, girls, boys, we all go from that Kevin and Perry moment, don't we? Where
Yes,
we go
yeah,
from normal kids to hormones and etc. kicking in, but something was different in your case.
it was. So um, she was still 13 at this point, and I believe still to this day, this was the critical incident, what changed everything. And it was Halloween 2018. She'd gone trick or treating with a friend um, in the local village. And you speak to parents, you arrange pickups, and so her friend's mum were picking her up from Hyde bus station, and at 8 o'clock, and then dropping her off back at my house. She was late. I was panicking a bit, and I was ringing the mum. Um, what came from that was um, she was attacked in the bus station by 17 youths. Now, when I'm saying 17 youths, these ranged from 14 to 17. They were renowned in the area. A lot of the public around where I live knew about them because they had to change bus routes because they've been throwing bricks at buses, just causing chaos in the town. And what happened was, Scarlett and a friend were waiting for the mum to pick them up, and the youths came into the bus station, and they're on the same side as Scarlett and a friend. So the pair of them walked to the other side of the bus station, and the gang picked up on this and basically chased them. A friend went one direction, Scarlett went the other direction. The gang chased Scarlett. Scarlett didn't know the gang at this point, and they chased her. They beat her up. They set. No, this is really lucky. It was raining this night, and when after the beat her up, they put a knife to her throat, and they did cut her neck, but it was only a scratch where they put the knife against the throat, and they set a coat on fire. So she had a winter's coat on with a furry hood, and it was the hood they set on fire. Now, luckily, because it was raining so hard, it was burnt, and the police took that as evidence. But that coat could have gone up, and she could have finished up dead. An interesting thing, she asked them why they was doing this, and they said it's anarchy evening. It's not Halloween anymore. So she wasn't the only person that beat up that night. They beat an adult up as well, and that was the critical incident for me.
Was there any prosecutions from these events? Did anybody face the criminal justice system for assault or?
Two of them, because of their age and they're under 18, this is what I was told at the time. There was only two of them that the police arrested, and because they were 17, and they went to youth offenders, but the police didn't want to criminalise them, so there was no real criminal prosecution made. So there wouldn't be a criminal record, which I was really disappointed with.
Yeah. And what effect did this have on Scarlett then? Did you see a notable change in her
Yeah,
character and
within the week of that happening, a character massively changed. So from a very, very young age, Scarlett has always rode horses. And as she got older, I bought her a horse. And the friend she was with was one of her horse friends. And after school, she'd go to a horse. Weekends, she'd spend all weekend at the farm. And I'll be honest with you, it absolutely financially crucified me. But the reason I did it was to keep her off the streets.
Hmm.
It didn't turn out like that, unfortunately. So what started happening after that was I was getting phone calls from the farm saying Scarlett's not been up tonight, Jasper hasn't been fed, it's not been cleaned out, etc. Which was alarm bells for me because she was so obsessed with Jasper horse. What transpired from there was she turned 14 at the Christmas. After Christmas, she started going missing and coming in late, but just odd ones, weekends. But what I found out afterwards was she started knocking around with this gang because the gang started turning up at the farm, which is why she weren't going to the farm. I'm missing that sometimes because she was frightened of them. So she finished up, and I kind of get this. I'm not saying it's right either. She started knocking around with them so they wouldn't bully her. But this gang bullied everyone within the gang. That's just their makeup. And like I say, she wouldn't come home. I started ringing the police. There was one occasion, it was a school night, and she came downstairs at like, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock. I was just going to bed, all dressed up. So I said, where are you going? So she says, I'm going out. I said, you're not going out at this time. We've got school tomorrow. And she attacked me, physically attacked me while I stood at the door. And I'm a psychiatric nurse. I restrain carefully, safe. I'm always safe. I do mandatory training every 12 months. And I did restrain her. Uh, Firstly, to protect herself because she was going hysterical, and also to protect me. The next day, she told school, and school rang social services, and the police rang me at work. I had to come home, and the police were fine. And what they said to me is, yes, under common law, you can restrain her. She's got no bruises on her. What's your story and her story match, and you've not spoke to each other.
Mhm.
We're not going to do anything. And they explained to the police she was trying to go out late at night. Unfortunately, social services didn't see it that way. And they stayed involved for a while. And then, I guess, discharged her. But whilst the social services were involved, she's going missing a lot more. And I'm saying to the social worker, she's got money on her. I can smell cannabis on her. I'm really, really concerned. Anyway, they still discharged her. Again, what transpired from there was one of the girls, or women, I should say, who sold him cannabis, the drug dealer, took Scarlett under her wing and basically started grooming her for prostitution.
Marlon, let's just pause that there for a second because I think parents will be listening to this and think, "Oh, crikey, I've been through similar situations," and and it echoes in my mind that I've got daughters and going through those teenage experiences. When you get to this dreadful point where social services are involved, what did that do to your relationship? Did it deteriorate from there, or
I've got to say, some people don't get this, but parents who've experienced what I've experienced do get this. I am more angry with social services and the police than I am actually of the groomers, because we have an expectation for them to protect children, and they didn't. So one of the things what social services did do was they did something called a laddo, because I'm a professional. So if you're a police officer, school teacher, and there's concerns with safeguardings, they will report you to work. So one was I was suspended from work. To be fair, that we were okay. The other one was before they discharged her, they came to my house and said to Scarlett and myself, mostly me, your dad cannot lay any hands on you. If he does, you must ring the police.
mm,
Now that another critical moment. I still believe to this day, if I could physically stop her going out late at night, she wouldn't have been groomed. And what also transpired from that was Scarlett started physically attacking me all the time. At one point, I was stood in front of the door, and she kicked me that hard she broke three of my fingers, and I blame social services for that.
mm.
That there was no support at all, no emotional support, and the only safeguarding they did was for me to stop my own daughter going out.
Yeah. So effectively, your daughter had been given free range to do what she wanted
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the security blanket of if he does anything you don't like, basically tell us. And it's a real difficult, vicious circle, that isn't it?
It is, and she even at the time, and she's older now, and she's so apologetic and remorseful. She was even trying to blackmail me, saying, "You give me money, or I'm going to ring the police and say
Mm,
you hit me."
mm.
Obviously, I didn't give her any money.
Your story, even to this point, Marlon, resonates with me in my work as a parish priest in a tough urban setting, servicing, uh, ministering on two very challenging estates, and as you mentioned a few minutes ago, this then took a really nasty turn for the worse, even beyond
Yeah,
you could possibly imagine. And you
yeah.
mentioned prostitution. Take us down that dark tunnel for a moment, if you would.
So it happened twice. One not severe, and the second time extremely severe. So I were reporting her missing over 100 times. Um, she was
Hundred
going
times.
missing.
100 times.
I think it was in total 121 times. I only know that because I've just got the subject access request from the Great Manchester Police that I've been waiting for 4 years.
And when your daughter's coming back, they're bringing you back, and you're kind of, and imagine there's a cry for help going on here. It's like, thanks for bringing her back, but now what?
Yeah. So an example of that was they brought her back. She was 14. She'd been missing, um, let's say, a week, and they brought her back, and I mean in the middle of the night. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Might have even been later than that. And two coppers came to my house, woke me up, and brought her in. And I said, "Oh, brilliant! Thank you for bringing her home. Where did you find her?" So they said, "Oh, we found her on an industrial estate um, with two men and a woman." I said, "Oh, brilliant! Have you arrested him?" Because I lived in Hope. "Have you
Mm.
arrested him?" No. Why would we do that? Well, you've just told me she's with three adults. She's 14-year-old. What do you think they were doing on the industrial estate? Oh, we can't get into that. And was the attitude of the police and social services, because then the next day I'll be ringing social services saying they brought her home, they found her on an industrial site. So no, they definitely didn't protect her. What did happen was, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've said this a number of times on interviews. Is I put her in care, but even that were a battle with social services. I had to literally beg them to say, I need her in care, and as embarrassing as it sounds, I cannot keep my daughter safe. And eventually they did. But this is after she'd been missing for 2 weeks. I won't go into all the details, but I found her in Derbyshire. I found her address, 3 doors up from a Derbyshire police station. Who wouldn't get involved because she was a Tameside resident. And the police did go around in the end and had a cup of tea with the groomer. And I've still got the text now. Texting me saying, your daughter's with her friend. I won't name the female groomer. Your daughter's with her friend, blah, blah, blah. She is safe. I asked them to do something called a child abduction warning notice. And I text the police and social services, which I still have the text now as evidence. The police texted me back and said, no, we can't do that. That needs to be social services. Social services texted me back and said, no, we can't do that. It needs to be the police. Obviously, I've done my research since that time. Both of them could have done it. Anyone could have done it. It's like saying, no, we can't do a safeguarding referral. Any of them could have done it. So she had a period in care. When she returned literally on just after her 16th birthday. Because this is the other thing with social services. Once they're 16, they go over to like the aftercare team, leaving care team. And again, I've looked into this. Do you only have to have 6 contacts a year? Is it the minimum? And the work on the minimum. And within a week of her returning, what I didn't know was the female groomer kept in contact with her while she was in care, and then she started to groom her again. But this was different. This time she was being trafficked to Bradford quite a lot, Birmingham, all over the country, but Bradford and Birmingham were regular.
When you say she was being trafficked,
she was being trafficked for prostitution, and you know, the police have opened an investigation again, only recently in the last few months, and I believe the only reason why they've done that is because of all the media attention I've possibly done with the documentary, etc. Why I found out on my worst, and this is only in the last couple of months, my worst fears came true, is over 60 men have raped her. Now, one of the amazing things what Scarlett has done, which we were aware of, was I don't do Snapchat. I'm old. I can only just do Facebook. But Snapchat does GPS coordinates, and she kept a diary from 16 to 18 and was taking pictures of the groomers. And it's got all the tracking on it, which is amazing for the police. I'm really proud of her.
It's evidence.
It's evidence. Yeah, it's evidence.
This is just, this is just awful to hear. Was she being trafficked as a child prostitute or as a woman?
Yes, no, as a child prostitute. And this is why it stopped when she was 18.
She was no longer any use to the paedophiles.
Not a child anymore, yeah. And the other thing is, and people don't, the public don't get this, I think. I might be wrong, but So we talk about CSE, child sexual exploitation, and then we talk about CCE, which is child criminal exploitation. That they come for girls, they come as one thing. So it's both. So even though they're prostituting her and making money from that, she's also doing county lines, transporting weapons. They use that one individual as much as they can because it's a resource. And this was also happening with Scarlett.
It seems, from listening to you, Marlon, I mean, I'm just thinking of the crimes here. You've got grooming, child exploitation, child abuse,
Yeah.
drug dealing. Um, that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
How many prosecutions have happened for those crimes?
None. So one of the final straws, or for Scarlett, this is why another reason why it changed. So she'd been missing for about a month, and somewhat were different this time. When she used to go missing, she'd text me every day, saying, "Dad, I'm safe." I'll be texting her about saying, "You need to come home. I'm really distressed," and I'd use all kinds of tactics, and she'd never reply. She'd just text me and say, "I'm safe." This were different because I'd not been hearing off her, and I was literally screaming at the police. And they weren't particularly interested. No, we can't find her. We can't find her. She's nearly 18 now. We can't find her. I said, well, she's texting me every day. So why don't you track a mobile phone? I'm not a detective, but it seems like common sense to me. And they did. And they tracked her down to Rochdale. And what had been happening, which I found out afterwards, they were using Airbnbs to move her around Rochdale and Bury, but mostly Rochdale. And they raided this house and they arrested another groomer. It was shifted by this point from a female to a male groomer. And they arrested him. Um, but they arrested Scarlett for intent to supply Class A drugs because they found kilos of heroin and cocaine and crack in the property. Um, Luckily,
Marlon, I mean, I don't want to say the police are thick, but it doesn't take much to realize when a young person, a teenager, is in the eye of the storm that really they're not the perpetrator. That there's a whole circle of evil going on there,
and
and in
I
many
think it's
ways,
common.
to arrest the person in the middle is the easy thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
and it's common.
extraordinary.
I speak to other parents now. In some ways, Scarlett was really lucky. So they bailed her for a number of weeks, possibly a couple of months, and they didn't prosecute her. But I speak to other families and other survivors where they've got a criminal record
Mm.
from 16-year-old or 15-year-old for intent to supply Class A drugs. The life's ruined to some extent psychologically, and then to have that put on. And as well as I do, if you want a decent job, you need a clean criminal history.
And why do you think, Marlon, that nobody has faced a judge on these crimes? Why has and it's important to say that we're using your daughter's name because she is kind of
Yeah,
giving up her own
yeah,
uh, immunity
yeah.
from the story. Just say something about this.
So a lot of its theories. One of them is definitely around being politically correct and not offending certain communities. That's definitely one of them. Even myself now being interviewed by yourself, I'm very careful what I say because of the fear of being accused of being racist. So there's that one. I believe strongly, and I've really looked into this. A lot of the areas, I'm not saying all of them, but 90% of them are Labour-run councils. And I do believe it goes deeper. History has shown us that, especially in Rochdale in the past with Cyril Smith. I do believe it goes deeper, and they don't want to lose votes. And I have said this in the past. One of the words I'll use is votes over justice for children.
Mm.
Even now, my local area, I can't get meetings with the council. They just will not discuss it with me.
For what reason?
I do think
Yeah.
fear votes. I try all the time. One of my close, I guess, colleagues who's been really supportive with me is a local councillor Billington, and this did go global, and he was interviewed for the news. But at a public meeting, he asked the chair about grooming in Tameside, and he was shouted down. He was shouted literally to sit down and shut up because he mentioned grooming. And for him, what happened from that was he got a knock at the door from the police. And again, this reinforces fear. See, that doesn't particularly bother me because I'm past that.
Yeah. And what about your Member of Parliament's engagement?
So I've met Jess Phillips a few times. Jonathan Reynolds is my local MP, and to be fair, he's quite nice. Jess Phillips met her once at Westminster, met her once in Manchester. She were very clear. This is going back possibly 6 months ago, October last year, first meeting I had with her, that they weren't going to support public inquiry. So I'm not political. I don't care which politician it is, as long as they do something. That's my priority. Presently, I've been meeting with Chris Phillips, Katie Lamb, who's been a really, really big support. Katie Lamb, for people who don't know, was the Conservative MP that challenged Jess Phillips in Parliament just before Easter about grooming. I will continue to put pressure on the government to do a public inquiry. And we don't need independent inquiries because they haven't got any statutory powers. For example, for that is Andy Burnham, which is another person I meet up with. He's been running something called the Operation Spam Review, which looks into the historic grooming for Alderman Rochdale, but how the house services reacted to that. And Greater Manchester Police have refused to be interviewed and also to share information. This is the problem with an independent inquiry. Legally, they can do. They don't have to engage because it hasn't got any statutory powers.
So a public inquiry would mean they would have to.
Yeah, so the way I think of a public inquiry, it's like a courtroom setting where people are requested to be interviewed and they can't refuse.
Mm. Marlon, for me, listening to you, this isn't about colour, creed, religion.
No, it's not.
This is about justice for your daughter.
Yeah.
And probably turning to your daughter is probably an appropriate place to bring the podcast to an end. How is she? What are her goals? She's prepared to talk to the media, isn't she? Just tell us about maybe how she is now and what the future might look like.
Okay. The negative side is she's very traumatized. I get a number of phone calls. She's living around the corner from me in a flat. Her choice, not mine. I still get a number of phone calls in the middle of the night from her having nightmares. Um, she spends a lot of time in a flat isolated because she's feared of going out because the groomers are still around her. On the positive side, she missed a lot of schooling. She's just passed an English exam, and she's got a maths exam next week because she does like academia. She is currently working with a news channel. I won't say which news channel. And she's going around the country interviewing politicians. There's a bit about her story, but going around the country interviewing politicians and other survivors. I'm hoping something will come from that for her.
Is she still seeking? Is she seeking justice herself?
Yeah, so we do have ongoing meetings with the police, but since the Channel 4 documentary came out, um, they're not engaging it as serious as it was before the documentary. So we are having problems with them.
And what's your hope for the future, Marlon?
My hope for the future is one, we do have we have a public inquiry because it has to stop. One of the things I feel very strongly about is it is worse now than it was, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, Rochdale and Rotherham. I think it's worse now because not that many individuals have been prosecuted. They know they can get away with it. So that's increased it. But it has to stop. For Scarlett, I just hope she has a future. But to be blunt with you, what she's been through, she'll never have, let's say, the opportunities me and you had when we were younger.
And if people want to keep track of this story, Marlon, and you and your family, how can they do that?
They can do it on Twitter. One of the things I'm just in the process of doing is setting up a charity. Um, I, I get that many people contacting me, and I always might take me a week or two. I always get back to them. I will speak to any family member, any survivor. Um, there's not that many charities out there, if I'm honest. I was really shocked.
Mm.
Um, and I think a lot of it's to do with funding because people don't want to fund grooming charities. So I am in the process of setting charity up with some other colleagues as well. Twitter's probably the best thing. However, I do get a lot of people finding me on Facebook and then sending me messages.
And would you encourage people to get in touch if they've been through something?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. So as far as confidentiality, I'd never breached the confidentiality. I can offer some support. I am a qualified mental health nurse as well, and a qualified CBT therapist. Um, the other thing that I have done for a lot of families is I've referred them over to the solicitors. I don't get a finder's fee. I don't make any money out of this, and I know some organisations will do, and that's been really helpful for people because what a lot of people or survivors don't recognise is even though there's not been a prosecution, I'm not saying this makes it right, but even though there hasn't been a prosecution, they can still basically sue the police forces or local authority. And some people find it helps because they can tell the story
Mm.
of what's happened to them.
Well, Marlon, thank you for telling your story of what's happened
Thank
to
you.
you and your family, and that offer of friendship is included me. You know, if you've been affected by this podcast or you want to get in touch in confidence, then do, and I'll make sure that your story's heard and and give a voice to, in many cases, the voiceless. And Marlon, thank you for your time and thanks for coming
Thank
on the
you.
podcast.
Thank you.